feeling we're not in Kansas anymore.
That's the bottom line. 'Cause Stone Cold said so.
You're listening to The Review on the OSG Podcasting Network.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Review. It's the Online Sports Guys College Football Podcast where we talk about this, that, and the other college football. Of course, we are the Online Sports Guys. I am OSG Phil. Joining me, as always, Jay Wilkerson 16 and OSG Nelson, who just loves flashing his telephone up to the camera for some strange reason.
Because the app is there. Because the app is there.
For those of you listening and not watching,
he's flashing his phone.
Video too. phone apps, they're all free. A lot of talk about this week, guys. Might as well go ahead and jump straight in. But before we get too deep into it, John, I believe you have a couple things you want to get off your chest.
Yeah, a couple things to the floor. Okay, first and foremost, both of you, when was the last time that you kicked something barefooted?
Hours or days?
When was the last time that you actually kicked something when you were barefoot?
I stubbed my toe on the end table a few days ago.
Okay, Phil?
I kicked the side of my desk this morning.
Okay.
Does that count as a kick?
Yeah, no, because, all right, and I think I've outdone both of you. So, for those on the video side, here in Office HD, it's closed quarters because I have a piano behind me and doors and things like that for those listening. So when I get up out of my chair, I turn to the right, and that's when I can start walking and going out the other way so I don't get lost in cables and extension cords and everything involving the laptop computer.
How bad you hurt yourself?
A couple days ago, I turn barefoot, kick the door frame here, watching on the video side, basically directly behind me, about 2 feet behind me at about 4 o'clock, for those of you just listening and not watching. Did that, and it was to my middle toe. Not the big toe or the little toe, but the middle toe. So that happened. Then, in the middle of the night...
There's more. In the middle of the night, turn the bathroom light off, and we had the boss clean the carpets. Picture away.
Yeah, I know. I scared Wilkie's photo. I scared Wilkie's picture away. Middle of the night, the boss had cleaned all the carpets upstairs, and so things were strewn about. Turn the bathroom light off, pivot, head toward the bed, and my second toe, 2 days after I had stubbed my middle toe and kicked the door frame, I kick a storage unit and bruise my second toe. So that's the graceful stuff that I've done the last couple days, and I just wanted to know when the last time. I just wanted to know if I was normal in kicking something recently, or if I was abnormal in kicking multiple things recently.
So when you brought up the term barefoot kicking, I thought we were going to talk
Tony Franklin,
Rich Carless, guys like that.
Wasn't really sure where we were going here. Not John being clumsy.
No, I just wanted to know if I was. I know I'm the most clumsy of the three of us. I just wanted to know if the recency was what I was getting into.
A little touch of trivia with barefoot kickers and Tony Franklin. When he was at Texas A&M, he had a day where he had 2 over 60-yard field goals.
Boom.
I remember those.
A great Southwest Conference moment.
Yes. Now, my second question has to do with what Wilkie talked about last week, and it's more of a question to the floor. And if anyone wants to contribute their ideas, go ahead and let us know on our social media platforms, whether it's on Facebook at OSG Sports, Twitter at OSG Sports, at OSG Phil, J. Wilkerson 16, or at OSG Nelson. So Wilkie, with John Swofford stepping down.
John Wofford was a catcher. That was John Wathan.
You're thinking John Wofford for the Kansas City Royals.
Kansas City Royals, yeah.
So with Swofford stepping down with the ACC, and maybe it was my head that hit the door frame at this point.
Yeah.
So with Swofford stepping down with the ACC, who do we need to look at for folks who would be taking over this influential position in college football?
Well, of course, the three obvious names that have been mentioned have been Dan Radakovich, the AD at Clemson, who has really worked up the ranks in the ACC for Georgia Tech, now at Clemson, and we know the athletic success Clemson has had when he's been in charge. The other two I've thought of, Bernadette McGlade, the commissioner of the A10, who ran women's basketball at the ACC for years before moving on to the Atlantic 10. And she's expanded that league from 10 to 13, 14, and a basketball only league pretty much. And it's still maintained its profile as the little brother of the Big East. So that's been a success there. The third would be the AD at South Florida, Mike Kelly. Mike was pretty much John Swofford's right-hand man up until the college football playoff started, when he moved on to the college football playoff and worked with Bill Hancock before moving on to Tampa at South Florida. But he ran football, and I remember when I took the job with the ACC All Access, him taking me aside and saying, let's promote our football. So he was really the guy that spearheaded the ascension of football in the ACC. And if you're asking me who a front runner would be, it'd be Mike Kelly. He's still well known in that office. He's had success at the college football playoff in South Florida, where he's the AD. To me, I think he would be the more apt to be the next commissioner of the ACC. He's a lot like Swofford, and I think that's what the ACC needs. They need to maintain that maintained the presence.
And that was why I asked the question. I wanted to put it to the floor, as those were the things.
What's your ideas?
My ideas were to defer to you, considering you're the one who's been in the ACC footprint for the last 20 years.
So no debate there.
No debate. I was just genuinely curious as to, with this news coming out.
Those are the three that I would say. And I'm sure there's people out there that we're not even thinking of that they've thought of that are in Wall Street or some kind of college promotion or a deputy commissioner somewhere that they like. So
there's always a name that comes out of left field. Never fails. Guys, want to carry on here with some of the other things going on this week?
Carry on with some of the other things going on this week.
As you shake out your keyboard?
Yes, I'm shaking out my keyboard since I don't have, one of those high-powered sprayers to kind of get in between the keys and get all the dust. So I just figured I'd do the cheap version right now and just turn it upside down and then clean it out later with the hydraulic spray.
Okay. Efficient and effective. Agreed. Might as well start with the topic du jour for the first half of the 2020 year. And that's the battle against COVID, which is fighting back, I guess, for lack of a better way to put it, and making a resurgent here as we head into the heart of the summer. As we crawl into the second week of July, word comes that the Kansas Jayhawks have suspended their voluntary football workouts as of Friday due to the fact that they've had a rash of positive tests within the football program.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Guys, this is not looking encouraging, is it? We're kind of on the clock.
We are. We're definitely on the clock, and I know that wasn't the only school that you had your notes for in this particular week, but in taking it in the larger picture, the thing that I will continue to maintain on any show, on any network, whether it's ours or our friends at Barn Burner or what have you, testing. And when the NCAA doesn't mandate a national policy and you have schools who aren't testing until you have tests, until you have cases one way or the other, symptomatic, asymptomatic, what have you, I think that it raises a genuine concern. And I think that really this news should not surprise, because once again, if you go back a week or two, when you would have the initial contact, you would have the voluntary workouts, and it's a cycle that we're living in right now when it comes to this information. So I think that it really just comes down to schools, since we don't have a national presence in this when it comes to the NCAA. It's schools and conferences, and the Pac-12 being the first one to have some kind of a conference-wide policy, following in their footsteps to make sure that athletes are tested. I know it's expensive. I understand it. It's basically $100 a pop when you sit there and you take that long Q-tip and you stick it up the nose until somebody starts to cry, and then you get your sample, and then it comes back 24 hours later. But I know that cost is big here, and I think that if folks are serious about having something in the fall, you need to take a hard look at how much investment you're willing to make in your athletes and your students across the board to make sure that you can have something resembling a season. I know that we've had governors in southeastern states and key figures. We mentioned the Nick Saban PSA a couple of weeks ago, and the governor of Georgia came out and he's wearing a mask. If you want to have college football in the fall, you've got to do this now. This kind of public activity, I think, is crucial in all of this, but at the same time, I think it falls on the schools and the conferences to have something akin to a testing policy, since we are on the clock heading toward mid to late August. I mean, we're like, 6 weeks away from anything resembling college football. So I think that, we're on the clock, but I think that it comes down to the schools and the conferences taking the responsibility in all of this.
And Wilkie, along with Kansas, Oklahoma had 14 players test positive, and they started later than everybody else by playing.
Right. Clemson's had almost 30 players that have tested positive for it. LSU, I think numbers are climbing. But here's the thing that if we're going to go fact-based here, people within that age group have a less than 0.001 chance of succumbing to it, to dying from it. And I've not heard any hospitalizations from people that have been affected, or I've not heard any fevers or whatever. I mean, either it's just not being reported or what. So I saw you point your finger up, Phil. So obviously you have a point there.
The numbers are going up in that respect. No, the fatality rate's low. The issue has become, there's a lot of athletes who are testing asymptomatic. The concern is that they're going to get in contact with somebody and pass it on. And that's a big issue. Even if it's not fatal, you've got people even in that age group who are getting sick and going to the hospital or getting an infection. They get over it in a week, but they've already damaged their lungs. They've damaged their system. They have some built-in immunity for a short period of time, but they don't really know if that's going to be permanent or not. And they run the risk of catching it again. Not dying from it's one thing. Getting sick enough that you're laid up for 2 weeks at a time, that's an issue for coaches, and that's an issue for teams. It's an issue for athletes if they're going to be out of commission for a couple of weeks trying to recover from being ill.
I'll grant you that, but I just haven't seen any of that stuff reported. So I've got to go with what I've seen. I haven't seen any athletes that have been severely sick over it, maybe running a low-grade fever. I don't know. Those things have not been reported, so I really can't speak to that. All I can speak is to what I've seen. I've seen the numbers of college football athletes that have tested positive, but after 14 days of quarantine, where are they? And has there been that kind of damage? I mean, there's so many unknowns, but we're starting to get some facts about the COVID-19, and I got to go with what I see in the bar graphs. And the case is not. We're just talking college football. We're talking all over. In the 18 to 25 group, it has skyrocketed because they don't want to stay home. Can't say that I blame them, because when I was that age, I was the same way.
Yeah, we all were.
But no, I see your point, Phil, but I just haven't seen those things reported yet. And so I'm kind of at the optimistic that we're going to have a season. Look, I think college football is hell bent on having a season because if there's no season, we're probably not going to have college athletics of any kind in the near future because this is what pays the bills.
They're in the same boat, though, that Major League Baseball, the NBA, the NFL are all in the same boat in terms of that. And right now, they don't really know how things are going to progress. I mean, look at Major League Baseball. The Braves announced just this weekend that Freddie Freeman's actually physically ill due to this. Freddie's 30 years old. He's got an infection. He's laid up in bed. They don't know when he's coming back. That's really the risk at this point, more so than an actual fatality. And the problem is we don't really know which direction this is going to go. And we don't have accurate reporting because you've got schools like the University of Georgia where Kirby Smart has put a clamp down on anything. They're not even admitting that they've had positive tests. And because Georgia's legislature is in the South, they managed to pass through law saying that the university doesn't have to release any information based on the football team on an open records request for 90 days after the request. So Georgia could have 0 players that are testing positive. They could have 100 players testing positive. We don't know. That's a problem. We don't know how truthful college football coaches are being other than admitting that they have players that have tested positive and how severe those tests are. And that's the issue. We've got conversation already going within the conferences about possibly moving the season to the spring. The most prominent of those being Oklahoma coach Lincoln Riley, who came out this week and said that. Is that something that you guys see as being realistic?
Well, if they do it, go ahead, John.
Well, I was just going to say, let's go from the high school perspective, and it's something that we all follow. And you had the governor of the state of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer, suggest that so high school athletics could have some presence in the fall. She suggested flip-flopping fall sports and winter sports. So you would have the winter sports in Michigan, which would be tennis, golf, etc. Those that we've seen on television. That are one-on-one, limited contact, social distancing, what have you, that she is suggesting to the MHSAA take those individual sports, have them in the fall, late summer, early fall, so there is some activity going on when it comes to schooling and pushing football after the first of the year when there's a better gauge for what we can see. I could see that happening in some states. I know that the state of Tennessee has pushed their dates back. I know that Mississippi, I think, is debating pushing their dates back. Arizona has pushed their dates back. So I think that when it comes to dates themselves, I still think there's wiggle room when you're discussing football in general. Obviously, there's not much, but I still think to have seasons happen the way that they are, I still think there is that little bit of wiggle room, and you can do things with scheduling and such to where, as an example, if you wanted to keep your entire schedule, there's probably 2 weeks that you can slide everything and still have the season be in its traditional footprint to where your championships, if you're having high school football or any kind of football, would be toward Christmas week, instead of the week that the championship games are held that first weekend of December, and then you just kind of push things down. So there's in Division I football, you'd have 3 weeks to play with. You'd have 3 weeks of wiggle room. Everything goes to Christmas. Then you have your bowl games, and your season is maintained. Obviously, when you get into FCS, Division II, Division III, and NAIA. NAIA has already eliminated that first week and said everybody's going to start September the 12th. You're going to play one less game, and that's just how it's going to be this year. In high school, I think that there are ways to go about it to where you can eliminate your non-region games. Then you just have region schedule, and that doesn't upset your timetables and all of these other elements. So I still think there's a little wiggle room here.
And that's one of the things that Riley talked about when he was asked about it this week is if they ended up having to move to a spring schedule, that quite possibly we could end up with just a conference schedule only.
Yeah.
Teams would have to reboot and reconfigure what they do in order to accommodate that, but it is doable even in a conference with a larger footprint like some of the Power 5 schools. For some of the smaller conferences, it may be a little bit more problematic due to the costs involved as well.
Right.
But this is something that's on the table, not just in the Big 12, but the Pac-12 has discussed their options too, because California is one of the harder hit states right now.
Right.
And it doesn't look like they're going to be able to have any large gatherings there for the at least short-term foreseeable future.
So then let me present what we're seeing in sports all around the world as an idea. And when Wilkie rejoins us, I'll ask him about it as well. The notion of, and I know that folks are going to have issues with it, but the idea of still having the games to appease your television partners, although you won't have any fans. And I think that still may be in play, especially with the conferences with the larger TV contracts, and I think that that is something that is also in play, and I think it's just going to be a case by case basis. I think it's going to be a school by school basis to determine whether or not you can handle socially distanced action. You can have a percentage of your season ticket base in games on Saturdays. To what extent, I don't know, and I'd love to know what the contingency plans are for determining who would be allowed into stadiums when you're only dealing with percentages and social distancing. I think it would have to be with like mega donor, almost mega donor, donor, and then general public when you get past your season ticket base. But I think that you're going to have a plan. And obviously one of my favorite lines that I keep referencing in all of this, Wilkie, is the line that Fred Dalton Thompson had in Hunt for Red October. The Russians don't take a dump, son, without a plan.
Russians don't take a dump, son, without a plan.
And I think that for this to succeed, you've got to have a lot of contingency plans and be very fluid in your ideas, because you don't know when you're going to be able to activate an idea and how close you would be to the regular season as we know it before anything slides.
Wilkie, where are we at the point where teams have to get on the field and start practicing in order to be ready for a season? Are we at that point now? Is that something that can be delayed, or if they're going to do it, they're going to need to do it?
First of all,
we lost him again. John, I'll throw that question to you. We're in the second week of July. The season scheduled to start week 0 or week X or week Z or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, week 0, sure.
Point 1 is slated to jump off here in, 5-6 weeks?
Well, I mean, coaches have said, I think Clay Helton said that he needed 4. I think that if you use that as a guidepost, then you're looking at a month away. And so you're looking, say, 2 weeks or a week and a half from when this show comes online that you would need to have some kind of a decision one way or the other. Or you could sit there and, push it a week, slide it a week. I think that we're getting close to having that decision. To the extent of that decision, I don't know, but we're getting close to figuring out whether or not we're going to start on time, or we're going to start a couple weeks away, or we're going to eliminate our non-region games and just have conference play. And that's what I mean when I'm talking about having a plan that has a different set of ideas to it. I think you've got to have a plan if your whole season slides. What does that mean? Who needs to be prepared and when? If you have if you just have a straight conference schedule, what goes into that aspect of it? Your non-conference games go away. And then if you have to be prepared for flipping. So, I mean, that's just 3 plans off the top of my head that you need to be prepared for, and you would hope that folks are working around.
Yeah, we were talking, Wilkie, about being prepared and making adjustments to your schedule, knowing that you're kind of in the window here where you're going to have to start mandatory practicing here pretty soon.
Well, fall camp usually starts at the beginning of August. And as I recall, I think that's going to be happening right now. Teams are planning on that, which, maybe the great numbers of athletes that football players that are being tested positive. Well, maybe in a way that's kind of a good thing because then you kind of get the herd immunity going. So I think it really depends on the conferences and the conference commissioners and their commitment to football, to be honest with you. And I think we know who the ones that are committed, and I think we know the ones who aren't committed. A Power 5 level, I'm not too worried about.
Yeah.
But it's the group of 5, the FCSs and the D2s and D3s that got to have a football season if they're going to have any kind of athletic department at all. Those are the ones I'm worried about. And some of the Power 5 schools, yes, I'm worried about as well. Because I'm not talking about the coaches and the athletes. I'm talking about the external staffs that are going to, we're already seeing that. And they're the ones that are going to bear the brunt of that in the Power 5 level. In the group of 5 level, it's going to be everybody. And so that's why I say the college administrators are hell-bent on having a college football season of some kind. And whether it's just conferences, which would be my preference, or I'm not a big proponent of spring football, but if it comes to that, it comes to that. You're just you're really kind of screwing over your other cash cow, which is the NCAA tournament, which would be kind of interesting. But if some kind of start at late September, early October, conference only, I think would be acceptable.
Yeah, and speaking of games like that, we've already seen the Patriot League out of the football championship subdivision has already told their teams no air travel. You're going by ground, which has already led to a couple games getting canceled, including Navy at Lafayette College on September 12th.
Yep. And Western Michigan was supposed to open against Colgate on the 4th. And with that mandate, though, the distance, according to our friends at College Football Talk, is greater than 9 hours from Hamilton, New York to Kalamazoo, Michigan. So that was put in jeopardy. And so now Western Michigan will start their season with Stony Brook on the 4th as opposed to Colgate. And so Syracuse was supposed to open their schedule.
Right, we talked about that last week.
On the 19th with Colgate. We don't know if that one's going to get played. So it's I think that looking at the Patriot League with this mandate, obviously the game that was supposed to happen in Hawaii, that ain't going to happen because that's a little longer than a 9-hour drive. So
I don't know of a highway from California to Honolulu. Do you?
Yeah, no, it's
at least not that I'm aware of.
Yeah, grab a big boat like you do at the Port of San Pedro, like you're going to Catalina, and just put everybody on it and get them started.
Give them a couple of oars and go.
Yeah,
aircraft carrier.
Yeah, get an aircraft carrier out of San Diego, and then that way that can get to Hawaii. That's probably a good idea. But I think that the Patriot League is going to be the one that we're going to need to look at. And I think that that's your bellwether for FCS. We mentioned what the NAIA is doing, but once again, Wilkie, you mentioned the paydays, and I think that when you have the Patriot League shunning paydays because of travel and having to reorient their schedules, I think that it does, and it doesn't. Remember, it doesn't just hurt the football program. It's that trickle down effect, and we've seen what happened this week at Boise State, where Boise State has I believe they eliminated swimming and diving in addition to baseball to try to save money, and this is something that we're going to continue to see in the Go Fives when it comes to the non-revenue sports, and
even the Power Fives too are going to have to start doing that as well. And but the thing about the Patriot League, and I as I recall, it's a non-scholarship league. So that helps as far as costs. But it does hurt when you're going to some of these schools that are going to give a decent payday to not be able to go. It's going to hurt the bottom line a little bit. And, I don't know if it's the trend we're going to see because I think the Patriot League is a little more unique than the other of the FCS leagues. But with the exception of the Ivies. But I think the schools like the Missouri Valley Football Conference, the CAA, those leagues are pretty solvent enough where they can withstand a year like this without having to have those paycheck games against the Power Five.
Right.
But only 1 year. I think if it continues more, then we're seeing several sports go to the club level. I mean, it's really the only choice they have. But the Patriot League has to do what they have to do, and they feel that they're not going to do any air travel. That's the way it has to be.
Guys, what do you say we wrap things up here in the first block of the show? I didn't really mention it at the beginning, but I'll mention it now. Find us on social media.
I did.
At OSG Sports.
Yeah, John did. Come on now.
When you were flashing the phone around?
Yes. And the suggestions for the new
OSG
ACC
Sports,
commissioner.
OSG Sports on Twitter, on Facebook. You know where it is. Dial it up. Talk to us.
Thank you. With that all being said, it's time to go to the break. Stick around, everybody. When we come back in the second half of the show, we're going to talk about one of John's favorite coaches getting in a little bit of trouble and a few other news and notes from around the world of college football. All that and more when we return for the second half of the review. You are listening to the review on the OSG Sports Podcasting Network.
Enjoy all of our shows from the OSG Sports Podcasting Network. The OSG Sports app is up and running. Download it today.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency, or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinski of Apolinski and Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
Oh, I'd give a rat's ass about Twitter.
Thanks, everybody, for sticking around. You've made it to the second half of the show. This is the review on the OSG Sports Podcasting Network. We are the online sports guys. He is Jay Wilkerson, 16. He is OSG Nelson, and I am OSG Phil. We are the aforementioned team. Guys, we hit on the obvious topic of the week, the impact of COVID in college football in the first half of the show. In the second half of the show, we got a whole lot of little news notes, nuggets, and things left unsaid here. We start off in Oklahoma State. We talked a couple of weeks ago about a little bit of a kerfuffle, if you will, between Mike Gundy and...
It's a big word.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I try. I used up my quota for the day, however.
You and me both, brother.
Between Oklahoma State coach Mike Gundy and a rather interesting misunderstanding with a couple of his players. Gundy has since publicly apologized a couple of times, and the school launched a bit of an investigation. The school come out this week and said, we didn't find that anything was particularly wrong with the program or what happened or anything like that. But yet Gundy got docked $1 million of pay.
Yeah, he was third in the Big 12 and 13th nationally at $5,125,000 a year. So for a university that uncovered no signs or indications of racism, giving him a $1 million cut, basically a 20% pay cut, that's a big ouch. And now the contract also has gone from a 5-year rollover to a 4-year rollover. So
what screams to me is both sides saving face.
Yeah.
Gundy's a native son. He was a quarterback there. He's been the head coach there for what now? 15 years?
11 billion years.
Yeah, he's a fixture in Stillwater. I think he was he was offensive coordinator when Les Miles left Stillwater. So I mean, he's
he was the quarterback in the late 80s.
Yeah, he was the quarterback when Barry Sanders was the lead running back. And
easiest job in the world.
Yeah, just hand it to number 21. Let him and watch him go.
Here.
Yeah. But no, he's he bleeds orange and black. He's a poke from the core. This is a whole saving face measure as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, 15 years, 129 and 64.
But that we did a few weeks ago, was he in that list of top 25 coaches on the hot seat that you mentioned?
I think he was toward the bottom of the list.
Yeah. I'm curious to see what happens if they don't basically compete for a Big 12 title this year. I'm really curious.
Well, last 2 years they've gone 15 and 11, and 70s, 20s over 25 games over 500 in Big 12 play, 129 and 64 in the first 15 years. But that 15 and 11 the last 2 years is something to look at.
Yeah, food for thought. Speaking of coaches, news out of Texas A&M this week as the Aggies get in trouble with the NCAA, and they have provided a show cause charge to head coach Jimbo Fisher for recruiting improprieties. Another big word. I just exceeded my quota for the day. John, I will allow you to elaborate your thoughts.
Darn luck.
Is that all you got?
Drink some water.
Come on, is that all you got?
Yeah. How about that? I mean,
well, to me, it's Texas A&M. First of all, I didn't know Jimbo Fisher was 17-9 in his 3 years now in College Station.
Mm-hmm.
Where would I got him in Florida State?
Probably would have got him a trip to Charlotte.
Same as Willie Taggart?
No,
a little more than Willie Taggart.
Okay, well, I'm just adding some perspective here. First of all, coaches in Texas A&M, there's been some checkered coaches that have led that program. And as a child of the Southwest Conference, I seem to recall Jackie Sherrill and some of the shenanigans he was doing in College Station. There was rumors about when Emory Bellard was the head coach at Texas A&M in the mid 70s. I'm trying to think, was it Tom Wilson was the coach after Emory Bellard that they had some questions about? A&M has always been that redheaded stepchild to Texas, and they've tried everything to win there. And I think they got their equal with Jimbo Fisher, and there's a lot of pressure on both ends here.
You can't even bend the rules the right way in College Station.
Oh, according to the reports, it wasn't Jimbo himself who committed the rules violation. It was then assistant coach Jay Graham, who's since moved on to Tennessee. But the show cause part was Fisher was found to have, quote unquote, failed to promote an atmosphere of compliance.
Whatever that means.
Did not demonstrate that he monitored his staff.
In other words, you didn't walk in by Jay Graham's office and kind of see, hey, what's that strange looking envelope there with cash in it? Yeah. I mean, that's basically what it tells me. Or he didn't have his regular meetings with his compliance officer.
Coach Graham, what are you doing? I don't know.
Did you,
Coach Graham? There's not enough cash in there. Don't you know the going rate? It's a joke. It's a joke.
The Aggies now find themselves on probation. They were fined $5,000 and received other recruiting restrictions. Yeah, $5,000.
A whole $5,000 fine. Seriously. Jimbo Fisher probably opened up his wallet and said, hey, you got change for this? Or handed over his black Amex and said, here.
Jimbo was forced to serve a 9-day ban on phone calls, emails, and texts.
Don't you pick up that phone.
Don't you call anybody while your recruiting coordinator calls somebody.
You let's see your fingers moving on that phone.
Are you sending an email, sir? Are you texting a recruit? I ain't texting nobody.
Just break his fingers.
Texting my wife.
Just break his fingers. It's the same thing.
Hey, Moose, Rocco, go over and see Jimbo for a second. Okay, here's his quote. As Texas A&M's head football coach, I am responsible for promoting and monitoring for NCAA compliance in our program. While I am disappointed in the violations, including an unintended one that resulted from a conversation with a high school athlete, and apparently contact with this athlete exceeded 7 hours from the rules, it is still my responsibility to ensure we are adhering to each and every rule. I guess I should have read this as Jimbo. I'm pleased to have this matter completely behind our program. Look forward to continuing our efforts to make every aspect of our program one all Aggies can continue to be proud of, end quote. There you go.
We're talking fast enough.
Speaking of college football coaches, guys, some news out of Austin Peay this weekend as Austin Peay head coach Mark Hudspeth steps away from the governor's program.
Eyes open.
This one's weird. Yeah, not really clear exactly what happened here other than Hudspeth citing personal reasons for his decision and that he needed to take some time away from the game to be with his family. Hopefully everything's okay there. I didn't even really know, quite honestly, that Hudspeth had landed at Austin Peay after his tenure at the University of Louisiana in the city of Lafayette.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Kind of late in the season for that to happen. Budget cut or really a personal kind of a situation here?
Program record 11 wins, OVC championship, first ever postseason appearance. But this was his 1 year. This was his only year there. And how much of this was Will Healy's guys? I mean, that's my first question.
Yeah, majority of them was Will Healy's guys. But, it's one of those things when it happens in July.
Yeah.
There's usually something personal, as he said, family issue, or just something within the university that just couldn't be ignored.
Mm-hmm.
The last one I can think of that happened this late was when Butch Davis was let go by North Carolina 2 days after media day.
Yeah.
When all that was going on with Carolina. So if he says it's personal reasons, I tend to take it at face value.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
I feel bad for the guy.
Yeah, I'll right until further notice. We have our friends up at Austin Peay and just wish the best for the program that's really turned itself around the last couple of years.
A couple other odds and ends here. Some recruiting news out of Oklahoma as they get the best quarterback on the board, Caleb Williams, to commit to play for the Sooners on July 4th. Williams expected to be the number one single quarterback prospect in high school football. Goes to quarterback U itself, Oklahoma, a place known for churning out Heisman Trophy winning quarterbacks.
Yep. Well, that's why you pay the big bucks to Lincoln Riley. Any high school quarterback, especially a dual threat guy, will want to play for Lincoln.
Could have finished your sentence, but you kept going. Allegedly. Yeah. LSU, Maryland, Oklahoma.
Interesting group there.
Well, I mean, he is from D.C. He is from the D.C. area, so I understand the Maryland tag.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah. Well, but it's but I will say this: it is a verbal commitment. So as I maintain, when it comes to signing day and declarations like this, this is Glenn Ross. This is Alec Baldwin. Get them to sign on the line which is dotted. A always, B, C closing. Always be closing, always be closing. This is a verbal. This is now this is when the recruiting of Caleb Williams really begins.
Indeed. You guys got anything you want to talk about here as we kind of cruise through the second half of the show here with the news, notes, nuggets, and things left unsaid?
Wilkie, you got any notes? Because I got a couple.
All right, do your notes.
Clemson and Georgia are going to get at least $4 million each for the 2021 opener in Charlotte on September the 4th. According to our friends at the Banner Herald in Athens, each school will receive the greater of $4 million or 45% of the event's net revenue.
Yeah, that's why I don't worry too much about the finances of Power 5 schools, even if there is a problem playing college football games this year. They're going to get paid, and the TV deals come up in 2023. They'll be negotiated in 2022. They just got to hang on for the next year or two. They'll be fine. It's this, like Wilkie said in the first half of the show, it's the smaller schools. Because you got payday games like this for the big schools, those games aren't going away. They may end up being played a year later, but they're there and they always will be.
Clemson had to cancel their game with Wyoming. Georgia did the same with San Jose State. Clemson's going to pay Wyoming 1.1. Georgia's going to cut a check for 1.8 to San Jose for all of this. In addition to the home and home announced in April of last year, Clemson and Georgia now scheduled to face each other 6 times between 2021 and 2033, including the 2024 Chick-fil-A kickoff game. And there's the home and home series announced for 2029 and 2030. Wake me up in 2028 for that one.
I'm seeing
some first grader who will make his commitment to Clemson or Georgia and play in that game. You start looking at some of these first graders around here. What kind of spiral they're throwing.
Cat bill there during that comment.
Yes, so that's key, Wilkie. Absolutely key. And this is one that I also came across from our friends at College Football Talk and John Taylor. Dozens of Texas student athletes, including football players, are demanding change at the university. We know all about the idea of wanting to change the name of Darrell Royal Memorial Stadium, but they also want to add the name of Julius Whittier, the first ever black player in University of Texas football history. The family of Whittier this week filed suit against the NCAA. In the suit, seeking damages in excess of $1 million, the Whittier family is accusing the NCAA of negligence and wrongful death in connection to his passing in September of 2018. He had been battling Alzheimer's for several years before his death, according to the Houston Chronicle. Postmortem examination of his brain at Boston University revealed he suffered from CTE. The suit filed by Whittier's sister on behalf of her brother's estate and 3 surviving children alleges that Whittier's death at the age of 68 was the direct result of football-related head trauma. So, interesting stuff out of Texas there. The sister had filed a previous lawsuit against the NCAA on behalf of college players who suffered brain injuries from 1960 to 2014. So we'll keep an eye on that as well in Texas.
Interesting there. It's been one of those things oft discussed. Very little has been said. Be curious to see how that plays itself out.
Yep. I'm done with my news and notes and nugs and things left unsaid. Wilkie, what else is on your mind?
I got nothing. I'm just ready to tee it up and let Toe meet leather.
There you go.
Yeah, we need something to kind of look forward to here. I keep thinking that the next week is going to be the week that we get to start talking about conference previews and seeing who's going to do what and the beginning of practice here. And I'm hoping to God that within the next couple of weeks that actually happens, because we seem to keep having to circle back to the same stuff, but it's the stuff that everybody's talking about. I mean, we're at a point now where sports are trying to get off the ground. They're trying very hard to get themselves launched, and hopefully they will. The question is, what's next? And we don't really know. We can't really see that. We can guess. They can guess. Like John said earlier, you got to have a plan for it. Russians
don't get caught flat-footed. Don't be reactive in this process. Be as proactive as you possibly can when it comes to the treatment of your students on campus that have nothing to do with athletics, all of your administration, all of your personnel, all of your student athletes. Make sure that your plan is proactive and not reactive in all of this.
We want to see college football. We want to see, even before college football starts, we want to see Major League Baseball get off the ground and start playing games. We want to see the NBA play in their bubble and down at Disney World. We want to see the NFL kick off around the same time of the year.
Oh, I'm going to stretch here for a second.
Care to explain that shirt, Mr. Nelson?
Oh, well, that's my father. I'm just John. The Savannah Bananas in the Independent League They have a rather unique set of rules when it comes to how they play their games against teams like the Macon Bacon, one of the best food rivalries in all of baseball, the Bananas and the Bacon going at it. They just played last weekend. And so
there's no truth to the rumor they play in a big sandwich.
No. But in Savannah, they do play at Grayson Stadium. But this was part of the idea of bringing fun back from the Savannah Bananas perspective. So they are just they want to make baseball fun, and they continue to do so on a daily basis. So I figured I would show my support for you, the Bananas of Savannah, who have awesome jerseys, by the way, and they're too expensive for me to buy.
The mascot's pretty cool too.
It's a banana.
I don't know. I like Macon's hats. Anytime you have a slice of bacon on your
Yes, that is correct.
You can never go wrong with that. The problem is you have to constantly, the mascot has to be constantly running away from fans. You try to eat him.
Well, it depends.
Oh, wow,
just don't have any games around brunch time. Just make sure that they're later in the day. So you don't have to wait.
You know, there's a lot of sizzle with that team.
And no fat.
Sizzling. Yeah, sizzling. You don't want to go there. You're not the Macon sizzling. You're the Macon bacon, brother. It is full calories or nothing.
Guys, before I keep killing our audience with the really, really, really bad dad jokes, why don't we wrap up the show?
Sounds like a plan. So I'll do the blatant promo along with Wilkie while Phil is laughing in a corner. Let's see. So here's what you do. As I dial up things on the Android version, don't forget to download the OSG Sports app, available iOS and Android. I have the Android version as well, and there's the iPhone version. Don't forget to like, friend, be a part of the conversation on all of our social media platforms, whether it's on Facebook at OSG Sports. Thank you, Count Floyd. Whether it's on Twitter at OSG Sports, at OSG Phil, at J Wilkerson 16, or at OSG Nelson. Go to theonlinesportsguys.com for all the news that's fit to talk about. When Phil has a burr under his saddle and he wants to write about it, let us know what you're thinking as well. And thanks to those who are listening and watching and responding to us on social media, because I know that the Gundy discussion came up with some of our listeners and watchers the other day. Thanks for being a part of the discussion, especially the one gentleman who said that Gundy had to go. And keep those comments coming. I'm trying to think of other things. OSG on CFB appears starting midweek on Zingo TV channel 250 through our friends at Barn Burner. So don't forget to download the Zingo TV app as well, so you can watch the show if you're not going to watch us on our YouTube channel. There's the favorite section, Barn Burner channel 250, and the College Media channel at 251. Wilkie, have I forgotten anything?
No, I think you nailed it.
Boom! Let's get out of here before the window closes.
Nailed it! Okay, everybody, thanks for tuning in. You've been listening to the review on the OSG Sports Podcasting Network.
Enjoy all of our shows from the OSG Sports Podcasting Network. The OSG Sports app is up and running. Download it today.